والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحابته أجمعين. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. سبحانك لا فهم لنا إلا ما فهمتنا إنك أنت الجواد الكريم. وقل رب زدني علما. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. اليوم أحل لكم الطيبات وطعام الذين أوتوا الكتاب حل لكم وطعامكم حل لهم والمحسنات من المؤمنات والمحسنات من الذين أوتوا الكتاب من قبلكم إذا آتيتموهن أجورهن محصنين غير مسافيهن ولا متخذي أخدان ومن يكفر بالإيمان فقد حبط عمله وهو في الآخرة من الخاسرين. صدق الله مولانا العظيم. So yesterday we talked about the beginning of this ayat regarding the ta'am alladhina utul kitab, the food of the people who have been given the book before you, the food meaning the taba'ih, that meat which is slaughtered according to their sharia, which is also congruent with our sharia. And the summary of that is basically, if the people of the book, Jews and Christians, they believe in their book, even though they have wrong beliefs, but they slaughter according to their sharia, which is basically the same as our sharia, and that is that they cut the neck in the proper way, and they mention the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they don't mention any other name. So, slaughtering in the proper way, mentioning the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and belief in their books. So is that available in the world today? That's the question. As I mentioned, perhaps among the Orthodox Jewish community, there may be that might that might happen. Among the Christians, number one, most of the Christians, very few of the Christians in the Western world really believe in Christianity. If you ask them, well, are you Christian? Yeah, my parents were, Or, I mean, if you want to count me in the census, I guess so. But did you believe in that? I really don't know. I have no clue. I've never even thought about it. So most of the people, they don't really have any connection. So you can't really call them Christian. They don't really have any belief in that book. That's number one. Number two, how many of those people who actually consider themselves Christian actually slaughter animals like that? It's almost unheard of. I don't even think they know anything about that. Maybe these very, sort of fundamentalist communities like the Amish community, or maybe, I don't know. I haven't studied the issue. I don't know what they do, but it's pretty doubtful. In any case, one of our brothers brought up the issue of the meat in the supermarkets. Well, that's totally out of the question. I mean, that's they shoot it with a gun or stun it, or I don't know what they do, but there's no remnants of anything which has to do with any type of sharia in slaughtering those animals whatsoever. Not to mention the unhuman treatment that those animals are generally given. So, one would never want to involve in that. So, that's the khulasa of that. Now we come to another very tricky issue, and that is the issue of marrying the women of the people of the book. So just as the baya, with those rules and regulations that we talked about, even though it's acceptable, we can't say that it's not legal, but many of the fuqaha say it's makruh because there's such a lot of gray area there, and there's so much doubt that could arise, so you're better off leaving it. As we mentioned, even if you never eat meat again for the rest of your life, you're going to live fine. You're not going to die of starvation. It's very hard, by the way, to die of starvation. Did you know that? The mothers, when their children don't eat breakfast, he's going to die of starvation. No, it'll take him a good 2-3 months before he dies of starvation. If you don't have water, for a week, then yeah. Or if you don't have air for a few minutes. But food, you can go for months. So you've got plenty to eat. There's not like, you have to eat meat. If you find it, you go to halal, fine. If not, there's so many other things you can have. So therefore, it would be like, if necessary, or you can't say it's not halal. At the same time, one would abstain from it. Therefore, many of the fuqaha say it's makruh. it's unpreferred. It's not liked. One should abstain it, if it is possible. So again, the issue with marrying the women of the book. وَالْمُحْسَنَاتُ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنَاتِ, and as for marrying of the women, number one, and that's the original thing, and that's what one should be looking for as a Muslim, the muhsanat, muhsan from hisn. Hisn is a fort. So the fortress, it's a moral and ethical fortress that chaste women and men keep around themselves, and so they're called muhsanat. It also is used sometimes to differentiate the free from the people in bondage. But here, most of the consensus points to the context points to that. The chaste woman, you don't want to marry a woman of ill repute, even if she's a Muslim. That's not going to be a good idea. What kind of a household are you going to have? What kind of children are going to be brought up, and what morals and ethics are they going to be taught, even if she happens to be a Muslim? Of course, if she reverts back to the proper path and does sincere tawbah, then that's another issue altogether. Similarly, وَالْمُحْسَنَاتُ مِنَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُم, and also those chaste women from among those women who have been given the book before you. Again, we're talking about the Jews and the Christians. What other books have been sent, or other prophets? The only ones that we know about certainly are the Jews and the Christians. Therefore, the consensus of the ulama is that only refers to the Jews and the Christians. And again, Jews and Christians who believe in their book. They believe, on the basis, even though they might have skewed beliefs, but they do believe that yes, I'm a Christian, I believe in God, and I believe in what was sent to Jesus and so forth. And the Jews similarly. Again, however, is that something we would want to, get involved in if we have the option? And again, we see that first of all, the original thing is that we seek out Muslim women who are chaste and pure and following the Deen. If you don't find that, then perhaps that's an alternative. Some of the Sahaba, in fact, actually, as Islam grew and it spread out, and so the Sahaba found themselves in areas that had, of course, the original inhabitants were mostly Jews and Christians. So some of the Sahaba, prominent Sahaba, in fact, married Jews or Christians, and Sayyidina Umar in his time, and that was when the maximum expansion took place. He was adamant that you divorce these women. He said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, is this haram? He said, no, it's not haram, but I fear two things. Number one, I fear that you doing so, you're going to set a precedent, everybody else is going to follow suit. That being the case, what about our Muslim women? Our Muslim girls who are waiting for a marriage, and particularly in some of these countries where they happen to be very beautiful, these women. And so the Arabs, everyone's tends to be attracted to new things. So if you start this precedent, then everybody's going to follow suit, and our women are going to be left behind. And at the same time, what kind of environment are they going to build in the house? Particularly if they remain, adamant on their deen. The reason for just like the food, that they also have a similar belief set, which hopefully, when the environment is Islamic and the man is really firm on his Islam, generally these women will follow, their husbands and enter into Islam. And in many instances, as we see here, they actually become better Muslims than the original one, because they come in with conviction. Sometimes not. We've seen in the history of Islam, some of these women were married to for example, it was the practice of some of the khulafa, particularly in the Ottoman Empire, and later on, that they would exchange daughters from the princes and kings, and in the case of Jews or Christians, particularly the Christians generally, and sometimes these women brought a lot of cunning and a lot of treachery, and sometimes the whole kingdom went into uproar, might even be lost as a result of the treachery of some of these women. So you can't be totally, safe from these type of things. And obviously, if she's going to remain on her Christianity or her Judaism, then how are the children going to be brought up? interestingly, the Jewish community, they consider someone Jewish if the mother, really Jewish, if the mother is Jewish. Why? Even though they will be son of the father, so-and-so son of the father, just like we have in the Arab custom, in the Arabic custom. However, perhaps the reason for that, or the philosophy behind that may be that because the influence of the mother is greater than the influence of the father in the upbringing of the children. So if she's a staunch Christian or Jew, then the children are going to be brought up such. So that's something we would want to abstain. And therefore, you can't say it's not jaiz, it's not legal, but just as Umar said, this is not to be, this is not the first option. And so as far as possible, one would seek out the believing, the Muslimat who are pious and God-fearing. That's obviously we want to build our home on that basis. Now, suppose the woman accepts Islam, then that's fine. We find again, we find many of these Muslim women who actually, they accept Islam. They go ahead of their husbands. We see that a lot. But in any case, that be it may it is. In any case, if you are going to have any relationship with these women, this relationship will be a chaste and modest and ethical relationship with proper marriage. So if you are going to marry these women, keeping in mind those elements and those aspects that we mentioned, so إِذَا أَتَيْتُمُوهُنَّ أُجُورَهُنَّ, you must give them dowry and marriage and marry with them with a proper marriage contract in the same way with the witnesses and solemnization and mahar, etc. مُحْسِنِينَ غَيْرَ مُسَافِحِينَ, while you exercising chastity and modesty and not exercising, just following your lusts and your pleasures, and not لَا مُتَّخِذِي أَغْدَانِ, you're not taking mistresses or concubines or pleasure partners, as it were. وَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِالْإِيمَانِ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, again, the Sharia is always accompanied with motivation and frightening of going over or circumventing the rules and regulations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِالْإِيمَانِ, who denies Iman. What does that mean? Who goes against the edicts of Iman? Going against Sharia and not observing Sharia and disregarding it is a kind of kufr. It's disregarding, it's an ingratitude. فَقَدْ حَبِطَ عَمَلُهُ, his actions and his amal and all of the good deeds that he's done, they go to naught. They are negated. وَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ, and in the hereafter, he's going to be among the great losers. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to understand these injunctions, particularly living in the West. We're faced with this quite prolifically, so may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us understanding and help us navigate through these issues according to His pleasure. Ameen thumma ameen wa akhir da'wana. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.